Imagine being drafted by the NFL at like 11 years old.
11. Wow. Okay.
Right. And you train 14 hours a day. You basically surrender your entire childhood and you learn the playbook inside and out.
Just dedicating your whole life to it.
Exactly. But then at age 23, before you ever step foot on the field for a single professional game, you are cut.
Oh, man.
And not because you lack the talent, but because, a corporate executive decides you are statistically, say, 1 inch too tall for the team's visual brand.
That is just brutal.
It really is. And welcome, everyone, to our deep dive today. We are looking at a fascinating stack of sources, everything from breaking entertainment news articles to these really in-depth, behind-the-scenes interviews with a Grammy-nominated music producer.
Yeah, we have a ton of ground to cover today.
We really do. And our mission for you today is to pull back the hyper-polished curtain of the multi-billion-dollar global pop machine.
Because the sheer volume of information we're analyzing, it points to this massive systemic fracture in how that machine operates. And more importantly, how the actual humans inside it are responding.
Yeah. So, okay, let's unpack this. I like to think of the global pop industry like a pristine swan gliding across a lake, right? From the shore, it looks effortless, totally perfect.
But underwater,
It is paddling frantically, just grinding itself down to stay afloat. Or, you could think of it less like an art studio and more like a high-frequency trading algorithm.
right.
From the outside, as a consumer, it's just this sleek, flawless app on your phone giving you 3-minute bursts of joy. But underneath, that system is running thousands of microtransactions, grinding its servers to the absolute breaking point just to shave a fraction of a cent off a margin.
And in this analogy, the artists are the servers.
Exactly. The artists are the servers. And right now in 2026, those motherboards are basically melting.
They really are. I mean, we can see the smoke billowing out of the servers if we just look at the immediate breaking news surrounding the multinational pop group KATSEYE.
Oh, yes. The HYBE and Geffen venture.
Right. They are arguably the vanguard of modern pop right now. And just in August 2026, member Sophia announced she was stepping away.
Wow.
Yeah, she's taking a temporary hiatus to prioritize her mental health and wellness. She even had to miss the premiere of their own documentary, KATSEYE. Wild Hearts.
Which is wild, right? A documentary designed to promote the group, and she can't even be there. It just really highlights the irony of the whole situation.
Completely. And, this isn't an anomaly at all. Just 6 months prior to that, in February 2026, another member of the exact same group, Manon Bannerman, she also had to take a health-related hiatus.
Right. And Manon's situation, the sources really go into the weeds on this. It reveals the immense psychological layering of this burnout.
Yeah, she was dealing with frequent physical illnesses, but she was also navigating the highly specific pressure of being the only Black woman in the group.
Which brings a whole other level of scrutiny.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
She was fighting against this deeply unfair racist trope of being labeled lazy by certain factions of the internet.
Ugh, that's just awful.
It is. The sources detail how she felt this constant need to overperform just to prove her baseline worth, which is, it's a crushing psychological tax to pay on top of an already punishing schedule.
Right, and not to mention the cultural whiplash there. Manon grew up in Switzerland where, the general societal rule is if you are sick, you stay home and recover.
Yeah, a very normal work-life balance.
Exactly. But that fundamental expectation violently clashed with the reality of a hyper-capitalist pop machine that demands constant, unending forward momentum.
Which brings us to the mechanics of that momentum, really.
Right.
Because the industry operates on a fundamentally different financial engine today than it did, say, a decade ago.
Okay, I actually want to push back on that a bit just to play devil's advocate here, because I'm looking at the modern financial structures in these sources, and on paper, it looks like a massive win for labor.
Okay, how so?
Well, we've moved past the era of those notorious slave contracts, right? Where teenagers were locked in for 13 years and paid absolutely nothing until they recouped millions in trainee debt.
Right, those were standard back in the day.
Yeah, but today we see initial contracts legally capped at 7 years. Digital music royalties are hovering around like a 70-30 split in favor of the artists.
Yes.
Global stadium tours are often split 50-50. Some artists are even keeping 100% of their solo fashion endorsements. So aren't these artists currently in the best negotiating position in the history of the industry?
That's a fair question.
So is this just the standard age-old pressure of fame, or has the sheer volume of content required by modern pop completely broken the human limits of these artists?
Well, the legal framework is undeniably better, yes.
Yeah.
But the math of a 70-30 split It actually creates a hidden physical tax on the artist.
A physical tax. How does that work?
So think about it. If a massive corporate label is surrendering 70% of the digital revenue to the artist, the label's profit margin per stream shrinks drastically.
Right. Okay.
So to keep their shareholders happy and maintain those billion-dollar valuations, they have to make up for that lost margin through volume.
Ah, I see.
The sheer amount of output required from a pop group today has scaled exponentially just to compensate for the fairer financial splits.
Okay, so it is an economy of infinite scale. Instead of releasing, one album every 2 years and doing a standard tour, the label requires a constant, relentless pipeline of content to extract their 30%.
That is exactly the core issue. The financial debt of the past has been replaced by a physical deficit today.
Wow.
The artists are dealing with overlapping global festival bookings, midnight call times for music video shoots, and brand partnerships that require constant international travel, and perhaps the most draining element.
Let me guess. Real-time fan communication apps.
Yes, exactly.
Man, if you are listening to this right now and you've ever felt the burnout of answering a work Slack message at 9 p.m., multiply that by 1,000,000.
Oh, absolutely.
These artists are on subscription-based messaging platforms where fans literally pay to have direct access to them. The parasocial relationship is contractually monetized.
Right. You are expected to be emotionally on and available 2007.
Yeah, and when that expectation meets physical exhaustion, the system just snaps. And the fascinating development here in 2026 is that the fans are no longer passive consumers. They are actively monitoring the supply chain.
They really are. Like when Manon went on hiatus, the corporate machine tried to just keep churning.
Business as usual.
Exactly. Geffen and HYBE released the music video for the track Pinky Up without her. They dropped a limited edition Gap hoodie campaign where she was visibly missing from the promotional group photos.
And the fandom weaponized their wallets almost instantly. They didn't just tweet their displeasure, they organized structured financial boycotts.
Yeah, it was incredible to watch.
They tanked the pre-orders for the physical merchandise. They flooded social media with hashtags like cancel billboard charts, actively withholding their purchasing power to just ruin the label's first-week charting strategy.
Because fans understand that charting numbers directly impact the parent company's stock price. They struck at the algorithm's core.
But to understand why these modern groups are trapped in this specific cycle of exhaustion and, why the labels are so reluctant to alter their pipelines, we have to look at the architectural blueprint they are standing on.
We do.
Today's pop groups are running on the software coded by the industry 2 decades ago, and there is no better stress test of that foundational code than the story of someone who spent a decade locked inside it.
Right, which brings us to the ultimate cautionary tale. We need to examine the story of Kim Yoon-jae, who is known professionally as EJAE.
Her trajectory is just wild.
It really is the ultimate case study in the dystopian reality of the trainee system. So in 2003, at just 11 years old, she auditioned for SM Entertainment.
The audacity of an 11-year-old singing a ballad and then awkwardly dancing to an Usher song in front of corporate executives is just incredible.
It's so bold, but, they see the raw material and they bring her in.
And then she spends the next 11 years as a trainee.
11 years. Her entire developmental youth from age 11 to 22 is surrendered to the machine. Weekends meant reporting to the training facility at 8 a.m. and staying until midnight.
Wow.
And on weekdays, she went straight from her middle school and high school classrooms directly to the studio.
And the curriculum wasn't just vocal warm-ups and choreography either. It was a literal factory assembly line.
Yeah, they were taking language classes in Japanese and Chinese to ensure future market penetration. They were put through media training, acting classes, and regular ruthless evaluations where they were ranked against their peers on a literal scoreboard.
Because the labels are not running an art school, they are solving a complex algebraic equation. The sources refer to this strategy known as the cheerleader effect, which dictates how these groups are mathematically constructed.
Right, and it's fascinating because you are not looking to place 5 powerhouse lead vocalists in a single group.
See, I am fascinated by this concept, but break down the psychology of it for us. Why wouldn't a label just want the 5 absolute best singers in the room?
Well, because perfection is intimidating.
Yeah.
And it actually doesn't foster parasocial engagement.
Really?
Yeah. When a label builds a group, they construct it based on visual and sonic balance. They need one elite vocalist to carry the choruses, one phenomenal main dancer to anchor the choreography, a visual center whose face fits the exact beauty standards of the moment, and a charismatic leader for interviews.
So the members are highly specific puzzle pieces designed to cover each other's blind spots.
Yes. And by leaving slight, calculated weaknesses in the group, it triggers an endearing protective instinct in the fandom.
Oh, wow.
Like, if a member is a jaw-dropping dancer but struggles slightly with high vocal notes, the fans want to defend and support that member. The group has to look and sound perfectly cohesive as a unit, relying on the chemistry of those imbalances.
That's incredibly calculated. So EJAE was in the trenches, training alongside girls who would eventually become foundational legends of K-pop, right? Members of groups like Girls' Generation and FX.
Yeah, she was right there with them.
She watched them get pulled from the trainee pool and debut on the global stage, while she just kept practicing, waiting for the equation to need her specific variable.
And then, after 11 years, in 2015, her variable was permanently discarded.
Just tossed aside?
Yep. At 23 years old, SM Entertainment called her into an office and terminated her contract.
And the clinical corporate rationale they gave her is just staggering. They told her she was too old for a debut at 23.
23.
Right. And they noted she was 5'8", meaning she was supposedly too tall.
Because in the visual mathematics of a pop group, a tall member breaks the uniform silhouette. It forces the broadcast cameras to pull back wider, making the rest of the group look smaller.
Just insane. And sonically, they decided her vocal register was too husky and dark to fit the bright, pristine, feminine brand they were currently selling.
So over a decade of her life, essentially her entire conscious memory was erased in a single afternoon.
The psychological toll is devastating. The sources describe her signing the termination papers on a rainy day, getting into a cab in a state of total shock, and spending a month confined to her bed, severely depressed.
I mean, how could you not be? If you are drafted at 11 and fired at 23 with zero real-world experience, how do you even establish an identity?
Exactly. The machine broke her. And most people would have walked away from music entirely, gotten a desk job, and tried to forget it ever happened.
Sure.
But here's where it gets really interesting. EJAE shifted her angle of approach. She moved to New York and enrolled at NYU's Tisch School of the Arts to study the music industry and psychology.
She didn't flee the business. She decided to study the anatomy of the beast that just rejected her.
Exactly. And while in New York, she completely decoupled herself from the rigid, heavily monitored environment of corporate pop.
Right. She immersed herself in the SoundCloud underground scene, studying artists like Taku and Sango, who were making this raw, unstructured, atmospheric music.
She locked herself in local cafes and taught herself Ableton. She moved from being a front-facing asset, the face and the voice, to controlling the back-end architecture. She became the coder.
And her transition into professional songwriting wasn't even a calculated career move. She was asked to top-line a track for a producer in Korea.
And for anyone who doesn't know, top-lining involves taking an instrumental beat and writing the vocal melodies and lyrics over it.
Right. So she received the track while dealing with the fallout of a fight with her ex-boyfriend, and she just poured all that raw frustration into a demo called Hello.
And the track gets cut immediately by a major artist. Suddenly, the industry realizes this discarded trainee has an elite ear for pop melody.
Which sets up this cinematic full-circle moment in 2017. Her mentor, the songwriter Andrew Choi, invites her to a highly exclusive international songwriting camp.
A camp hosted by SM Entertainment. EJAE walks right back through the doors of the corporation that fired her 2 years prior. I have to pause here because this is wild. Did SM even realize they were buying back the intellectual property of the exact asset they had just thrown away?
Probably not. The executives commissioning the songs rarely cross paths with the trainee development team. To the A&R department, she was just an incredibly talented top-liner from New York.
Wow.
So at that camp, channeling the emotion of a fresh argument she had just had with her fiancé, she co-wrote a track that would become Red Velvet's massive 2019 hit Psycho.
Which was huge. Psycho completely fractured the sonic landscape for SM. It wasn't bubblegum pop. It was dark, moody, sophisticated R&B. It went multi-platinum.
It did?
And the ultimate irony is that SM Entertainment suddenly found themselves desperately needing the exact dark, husky vocal tone they had cited as the reason for firing her.
Exactly. They needed her specific sonic blueprint to build massive hits like Drama and Armageddon for their new flagship group, aespa.
So, I mean, did her 11 years of quote-unquote wasted training actually give her an unfair advantage over other songwriters?
Oh, absolutely. Her 11 years as a trainee gave her an undeniable structural advantage over every other songwriter in the room. It wasn't wasted time. It was a decade-long masterclass in pop architecture.
Yeah.
When EJAE sits down to produce a demo, she isn't just writing a catchy chorus. She is mathematically mapping the BPM for dance breaks.
Right.
She understands the physical stamina required to sing a specific note while hitting a choreography mark. She understands cinematic pacing.
So when she hands over a demo, it isn't just a rough draft for the label to fix. It is a record-ready blueprint.
Exactly. She intimately understood the mechanism from the inside out, making her indispensable. She forced a multi-billion-dollar entity to pay a premium for the genius they failed to recognize. But this time, she retained the publishing rights.
She owned the back end.
Yes.
And that structural knowledge set the stage for her to dominate on a global cinematic level in 2025. Because Netflix released the animated film K-pop Demon Hunters, and it became an absolute juggernaut.
300 million views.
300 million. And the soundtrack achieved something that hadn't been done since the Billboard Hot 100 was created in 1958. It placed 7 different songs on the chart simultaneously.
Yeah. The lead single, Golden, dominated the #1 spot for 6 weeks. And JJ was originally only hired as a behind-the-scenes songwriter.
Right.
But because of her 11-year vocal boot camp, her demo vocals were so undeniably polished that the film's directors, Maggie Kang and Chris Applehans, they just threw out their original casting plans. They elevated EJE, making her the official singing voice of the film's protagonist, Rumi.
The girl who was told she was too tall and too husky to be a pop star ended up voicing a pop star who shattered global streaming records.
It's amazing.
But what I find truly fascinating is the technical production process she used for the film's darker tracks.
Right, so for a song called Your Idol, the directors needed a track that explored the toxic, obsessive, and often terrifying side of idol worship.
And EJE didn't have to imagine what that felt like. She lived it.
She really did. When she was just 12 years old, adult fans of a rival boy band hurled trash at her and screamed threats outside her training facility simply because she occupied the same corporate ecosystem as their favorites.
That is just sickening.
Yeah. She knew exactly what demonic fandom energy felt like.
And so to capture that energy in the studio, she utilized this brilliant psychological and technical flip. She took the film's core empowering mantra, this positive, uplifting phrase, and she reversed the audio files.
By flipping the waveform backward, it sounded like this ominous Latin cathedral-style chanting.
I am geeking out over this. The technical execution of that concept pushed the limits of modern digital audio workstations. To create the illusion of a massive demonic choir, EJE personally recorded and layered all the crowd vocals and harmonies over the backward audio herself.
We are talking about stacking over 400 separate vocal tracks into a single project file.
400?
Yeah. And when you layer that much audio, the CPU's buffer size, like the amount of time the computer has to process the math of the sound it maxes out.
Yep.
She literally crashed her laptop multiple times, trying to render the sheer weight of her own layered voice.
It is absolute poetry. She took the toxic, suffocating idol culture she endured as a child, literally flipped it entirely backward, and used it to broadcast her own voice to hundreds of millions of people. She built a choir entirely out of her own resilience.
It serves as a masterclass in leverage. When you are facing gatekeepers in your own industry who tell you that you don't fit the required mold, EJE's story proves that upgrading your technical skills and controlling the architecture of your work makes you undeniable.
You don't have to wait for the gatekeeper to let you in. You can engineer a new door. So looking at the trajectory of the global pop machine we've mapped out today, we see 2 massive pressure points squeezing the corporate labels. On one side, you have the grinding physical reality of modern artists like KATSEYE, Sophia and Manon, who are buckling under the sheer volume of output required by modern financial splits and 247 parasocial apps.
And on the other side, you have the historical blueprint of that system through EJE, a system built on viewing humans as disposable algorithmic variables, perfectly willing to discard a decade of someone's life if their height throws off the visual symmetry of a broadcast camera.
So the next time you put on your headphones and stream a flawless, mathematically perfect pop anthem, consider the hidden human architecture required to get that sound to your ears.
Yeah, because you, the listener, you are the ultimate funder of this machine.
Exactly. And as we've seen with the modern fan boycotts around Man and Bannerman, the fans are realizing that withholding their money is a highly effective weapon. Your boundaries as a consumer matter just as much as the artists.
The consumers are waking up to their leverage at the exact same time that discarded assets are waking up to theirs.
Which leaves us with a fascinating thread to pull on as we wrap up today. If an artist like EJAE can use a laptop and digital software to produce Grammy-level hits and bypass the traditional A&R gatekeepers,
Right.
and if fan bases can organize online to financially cripple a label's stock price in a matter of days over unfair labor practices, will the future of global pop even need these mega corporations?
It really is an existential threat to a multi-billion-dollar monopoly.
If the talent controls the back-end code and the fans control the capital, what happens to the high-frequency trading algorithm when the servers realize they can just unplug themselves?
That is the question they should be terrified of.
Well, thanks for taking this deep dive with us. We'll see you next time.